Fighting a losing battle. Not really, but we do have to think about the battle differently. I'm talking about comics and their value. Let me explain. Hey, everybody, this is Perch. I'm stuffed up. I sound weird. I feel like my voice, I don't know what got into my nose. Feels like it's like I've been crying for the last like day. That's how my nose feels. It's ridiculous. I don't have a cold. Terrible. Anyway, how's that for starting out a video? That's the kind of hot open that you expect from a high quality, high audio show like this one. Anyway, um, this may be kind of a downer topic, so maybe that intro fits. And it's simply this: it's time we started looking at things differently because I've been going back and forth, and really trying to understand. Is comic criticism, is it normal at this stage? Is it kind of what always existed, and it's just that social media provide another outlet for people to ramp up their anger and get things out? I've talked to a couple people now in interviews. I've taught, and with the exception of a couple, that's the general, quote unquote party line. Joe Quesada said something similar of just, hey, all this outrage, all this people angry. I mean, these people are always there. There are always trolls out there, basically. And it's just that the internet has given them a bigger microphone and the ability to kind of blast things out. It feeds on each other. But this isn't anything new. It's always been there. And that statement doesn't ring true for me. And I say that from kind of a weird angle. I say that because when I hear complaints in a shop, when I hear complaints kind of outside the internet, it's usually the same complaints. It's what got me kind of mixed up, I think, a little bit about where criticism of comics, the origin was really from. I think I've been hearing with increasing noise over the last several years. The price point is too high, the quality seems lower. The companies seem to take the customers more for granted. That's the noise that's being built up. Now, I dropped in on a couple chats. I dropped in on the Comicsgate super chat. Some of the big guys doing their chats. And mostly it's people just goofing off and everything else. But the actual chat, not the people in the video, but the actual chat, it's filled with really angry people in some cases. And I do think some of the anger is an act. It's Marvel is trash and I'm never buying another comic ever single again. And I repeat, that kind of over the top, these kinds of statements. That's the stuff that you wouldn't hear in real life. That's the stuff that's magnified by the internet. You wouldn't have a customer doesn't walk into a comic shop and, raise their fist in the air and say, this publisher is trash and I'm never buying one of their comics. You wouldn't have that happen. But on the internet, it's easy for people to do that. And so those kinds of statements get over dramatic and they get bigger. Maybe that's what's in their heart. Maybe that's actually what they're going to go out and do. They're not going to ever support this one publisher ever again. There's certainly things like that. I won't ever eat at Arby's again. Don't ask why, but I won't go there. I've been in a position once traveling where it's like it's late and there's I'm in a place with not a lot of food and I'm starving and it's like there's Arby's and I'm like So I went back to the hotel and bought some stale crackers out of the machine. I just everybody has their lines and it's not for anyone to judge what those lines are. But here's the rub is regardless of where you think comics quality is, let's say you believe actually that, the quality of comics, the art, the writing, everything else, let's say you believe it's as good as it's ever been. Let's say you believe it's better than it's ever been, that this current era is the best. And for some people, that may be a very true statement. That may be how they feel in their heart, and that's okay. If the comics are working for them, that's great. But let's say that's you. Let's say you believe the comics have never been better. And you go into the shop and you're going to buy a comic, just one comic. And this comic is priced at $4.99. I know most comics are $3.99, but let's say you're buying, let's say you're even buying one of the X-Men titles, one of the ones that did really well. You're buying, Powers of X #6. You're really excited about this. You've read the whole series, and this is a comic you're genuinely looking forward to. $4.99. You you put your cash down, you pay your tax. It's five, whatever, depending on what state you're in, and you take it home and you read it and you enjoy it and you have a good time. Okay. In comparison, and I think this is the challenge. Let's say you decide to subscribe to Disney Plus for the month, 1 month. You pay your $4.99, same price, and you can in a month's time, over 30 days, you watch every Marvel movie ever made, all the Disney movies. You watch the Mandalorian series, brand new Star Wars thing. You enjoy some classic kind of X-Men cartoons. You're basically talking about, conceivably, you don't have a job or any responsibilities, hundreds of hours of entertainment. You can just sit there and just veg out. And you pay the same. Now, Disney Plus costs slightly more than that. Disney Plus, I believe, and I'll check here. Disney Plus is $6 per subscription. So you paid a little bit more. But that's a tough thing to consider. That's a very tough thing to battle against. $6.99 a month, or $69-$70 basically a year. That is very close. I mean, it's certainly less than 2 comics. Even if you're doing the $3.99, you're doing the cheaper comic. $8, 2 comics plus tax, or $7 for Disney Plus. Now, on top of that, you got Netflix, about the same price point. You got Apple TV, about the same price point. So let's say in a month's time, you bought, one $3.99 comic every week, 4 of them. For that same amount, you could buy Disney Plus and Netflix for the month. And the painful part, I think the part that is a real problem for comics, is that I watch Netflix and I'll watch a series. I watch that Lost in Space series, and I thought it was not good. I was like, yeah, this is kind of garbage. I watched it. It was not very enjoyable. I still gave the whatever 10 hours of my life to it, because when I start something, I finish it. And so I watched it. And I'm like, this isn't really good. Whatever, 10 hours of my life gone. But I didn't go back and like calculate, this 10 hours of my life cost me, divided up by all the TV that my kids watched and I watched on Netflix. This thing cost me probably 80 cents for the month. And so I watched 10 hours of entertainment for about 80 cents. And in my other hand, I've got Future Foundation #3 for $3.99. And I did enjoy that, and I got through that in about 5 minutes. So that's the problem comics has, is that the price point of these services, which have conceivably, I mean, thousands of hours of entertainment that's good, fair, bad, completely garbage, or the best thing you've ever seen, just all mixed up together. And you compare one against the other, and it doesn't make any sense. Now, this comparison has been thrown at Dan DiDio and Joe Quesada before. And actually, Sana Amanat got this question, and it's like, well, you can't compare the two; they're different things. And unfortunately, Ms. Amanat may not compare the two, but the consumers are. The people who are paying the money are comparing the two, and it's not a favorable comparison for comics. You wish it was, but it's not. And what comics does need to do is it needs to figure out, how does it, for lack of a word, how does it differentiate itself? How does it stop? How does it get out of that comparison? Because it can't win that comparison. It's going to get trounced. Comics are a different thing from Netflix. They're not the same. That's absolutely true. But when the price point is kind of feels like the same, and you're fighting for the same entertainment space in your consumer, it's not where you want to be, and increasingly that's going to be a problem. I mean, Disney is sinking what people have said, billions of dollars into this Disney Plus streaming offering. There's talk that series like The Mandalorian will cost as much or more than a full feature length film. Um, I've heard numbers thrown around with some of the big series like Bucky or Captain America, Falcon, Bucky, whatever they're going to call it. I've heard that it's about 10 million an episode. Similar things for The Mandalorian or more. And, that I believe it. And I believe it's a good return on investment for Disney because they're going to hook people for, millions of people are going to hook with this service. It's why they're catering to China and other places so much. I mean, they need the population to sign up and subscribe to make this thing float. But in that world, comics is just, the problem is it's an afterthought. It's not even just a bad price point comparison. It's actually completely an afterthought. And to get back in the game, comics has to become something else. It has to be something new. I mean, there's still a definite place for comics. I mean, people come in and they buy kind of the Watchmen trade paperback. They'll purchase some of the big stories. I mean, the reaction to the House of X, Powers of X series that Hickman did was something we haven't seen in comics for a while. There was genuine, real heated interest. People curious of what was going to happen. I mean, it was a big deal, and yet it's kind of one drop in the bucket to everything else. And the everything else is almost weighing down the whole balloon. This would be a disaster for comic stores, and it's not feasible. So this isn't a suggestion or any kind of realistic idea. But you could make the argument that comics would be in better shape if they just published 2 or 3 comics a month and just put everything into it. And you kind of wonder, are we going to go in that direction? I think print comics has a place. People don't like to, carry their tablets with them to the toilet, and there's that problem. But if the world was to go digital, I mean, if digital had been adopted in the U.S. as much as other countries, as much as Japan, then I think right about now there would be serious work being given to Marvel Unlimited or something like that, where just like the streaming service, just like Disney Plus, or it might even be part of Disney Plus, you'd have all these comics, all this content, and you would get much less new content. You might get 10 titles a month max, and you would get super high-end premium artists and writers doing kind of real showcase pieces that could be turned into books that people are trying to remember years from now. That would be the model. It wouldn't be what we have now. The challenge I think comics has is what we have now in the current race, like it's, like I've just talked about, stacked up, it does not work. It can't compete in that way. And again, I know some of you listening to this right now may be saying, "Oh, come on, but it's not the same. It's not the same." Just like Joe Quesada, it's not the same. I understand that. I understand it's not the same product. But at the same time, to the person paying the money, to the person who's buying it, it feels like the same experience. It feels like entertainment. Doesn't matter that it's a different product. It's still entertainment. And entertainment dollar for dollar, it's a rough comparison. 2020 is going to be the streaming war of Netflix, Apple, and Disney just going at each other. And in that battle, you're going to see, we're lucky. We get to see a lot of pretty amazing content. I watched The Politician on Netflix. I didn't particularly care for it. It was sad because it felt like something I should like. It kept kind of teasing me with like the like this is something that I would like. And then it never quite got there. I think I posted it on the second to last episode. It it got there. It's like, oh, that was a great episode. And then there was one more. It's like, you should have had one. Stop. Don't have one more. But anyway, I watched that and I didn't have a particularly great experience. But at the end of it, I didn't feel particularly bad about it because, again, the kids have watched, 100 hours of cartoons that month. And I'd watched other things I enjoy and pulled up a movie, and the convenience of just being able to start on one TV and go somewhere else, just pick up and resume. And I was all pretty good. And I didn't think about the cost. And with comics, it's in a place right now where people are thinking about the cost, and they're thinking about it in relation to services like Netflix, like Disney Plus. And in that battle, comics loses. It's not that it's close, or that they're different things. That the average consumer, when they get to brass tacks and they look at their bill and they're like, well, I spent you know $80 on comics this month. I mean, it's interesting because comics has one thing going for it. A lot of customers that are putting in big dollars are going in every week, and so they're spending, it's like $20, $30 a week, and they don't add it up. I've watched people do this from time to time. They miss a couple weeks and they come in and like, oh, what's the bill? It's like, oh, it's $110, and they blink and they're like, Jesus, I never thought about it that way before. It just, you could see it in their mind. They never had that price kind of in their face like that, and it was shocking to them. It was a bad surprise. And that's where we're at with comics. That's where we're going with comics. Is if you're spending $100 a month on comics, and then you look over and you're spending under $20 for three separate streaming services, putting out a thousand. I mean, I forgot Amazon Prime. There's another one. I mean, there's one where if you're buying things with Amazon, you're just getting that one. I mean, it's a messy world, and I think comics and the people who are managing them and doing them and working to make these the publishers, they've got to get their head in the game and start thinking about this. They need to stop. I mean, unfortunately, the thing that I've started to really feel, and I've talked to some other retailers and people in the business who are starting to feel the same. I've started to talk to creators who are seeing the same thing. It's interesting. They don't like the cocky, smug kind of attitude that comes out at cons from the bigwigs, from the Didios, from the Casadas, from the bigger people in the business, who kind of smirk at fans. It's like, this convention is for me. This is my convention, my people, my thing, and this is my playground. And it's like, you guys, you got to get your head in the game and start worrying about how to fix this problem, because you're getting killed now. You're about to get massacred, completely and absolutely massacred. Now, granted, and maybe this is why the people higher up feel the way they do. Their jobs are going to be fine. Even if comics does quote unquote implode, and comics, like I've said before, is never going to go away. But if suddenly a world shifts to where they're providing kind of premium digital content, they're providing their, 2 or 3 books a month to some kind of digital streaming platform, um, and that's what they're doing, they're still going to make the same money. They're still going to have the same smug expression when they go and do speeches at the cons. They're still going to be on top of the world. They're going to be fine. But the 80% of people under them are going to be kind of gone. that business, they're going to be shoved back to the indies, where they're going to be making comics with the same with the same benefits and restrictions that Larry King, the guy I interviewed, does. I mean, big artists and writers who are feeling top of the world over at Marvel and DC right now are going to be getting other jobs, or having to shuffle their wares out like anybody else. I've kind of rambled all over the place with a little bit of this video. So I bring it back to the core thing. I think there's a major threat, absolutely, to comics. I think comics still continues despite that major threat. And by the way, this is not something crowdfunding solves. I mean, Great. Glad there's a crowdfunding option. I'm glad there are more comics getting out there. As I've said consistently every single time, crowdfunding, getting comics out through other mechanisms is a good thing. More comics out is a good thing. But if you think people are going to struggle at $3.99 against, $6 Disney Plus, $25 for a book against that kind of stuff, it's again, it's a different model. And one interesting fact is a lot of the crowdfunding people will sound exactly like the Dan DiDio and the others around. Oh, but it's a different thing. It's not the same. Blah 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 blah. I hear you, but the people spending the money are going to look at their entertainment dollar and they're going to go, all right, I can basically buy every major streaming service. I mean, $25, throw in HBO Go and a couple others, or I could buy this one comic. And so the decision they're going to be making in their heads are, do I love this artist? Do I love this thing enough to, put it up against all these other services? In reality, they may buy both. And that is one way crowdfunding does differentiate itself, in that it's no longer about buying a comic. You're buying into a kind of an ideology. You're buying into, a vision. And that's different. And that's good. I mean, different in this case is good. You need to have some reason to justify this. But it's not going to be a growing industry. You're not going to have 100 people able to pull that thing off. It's going to be, for lack of a better word, it's going to be vanity work. It's going to be where, a fan is buying into an artist just like buying a sketchbook or anything else. They're going to do this once a year, and they're going to feel probably pretty good about their purchase. But it's not going to grow. And growth is what comics wants and needs for all of us right now. But it's a weird time. So this one went a little bit long. I hope you last until the end. Stats say most of you do. It's nice. I retain. I was looking at this in the stats for the videos, and there's the average of jump off point, and many people last about 6 minutes. I guess that's some kind of average, 5-6 minutes. And I last, most of the people who are listening to these videos, you last about 80 to 90% of the way through, which I think, on average, that weeds out some people who are jumping away right away. So that's pretty cool. I'm glad. Anything you want me to talk about, please let me know. But this is an interesting topic. We'll talk about it more, but it's something we have to wrap our heads around because, head to head, whether people like it or not, entertainment time is precious. With today's environment and everything else, time for entertainment is competitive. And comics has to bring something to the table to explain why it's different, why it's worth what it is, or it's just not going to make it. Not the way it is now. Now, again, please, nobody here, this is doom and gloom. Comics will survive. It's just, is it going to survive as a little boutique, or is it going to grow? Should grow. Everything else is going to grow. So comics should grow too. And so all the conversation should be around, how do we get it to grow? Anyway, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Please leave a comment below. Would love to hear your opinions on the matter. Thank you for listening. As always, like, subscribe, notify, click the bell for notifications. Yep, that's what I mean. Share, tell a friend, get a friend involved. Your job is to get one friend involved. Or if you have no friends, go make friends. Forget about my videos. Go make some friends. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. Thank you for listening.